Good morning and welcome to Tech Tuesday. My name is Heather Hickey and I'm joining you here from the technology program team. Today we're going to be exploring the app Explain Everything. And we have provided for you a link in the conversation document that gives some step-by-step instructions on how you can save from the school iPads into Office 365. So if you're looking for a little support there, I would suggest you open that link and bookmark it for the instructions. Okay, and we'll get started.
Today we will explore the Explain Everything app and the different ways you can use this app for the different forms of assessment. As we think of assessment, we're thinking of creating those reflective, creative, and holistic thinkers. Though we could probably touch on many of the Catholic graduate expectations, that one kind of speaks to me when I'm thinking about informing my students and helping them reflect upon that feedback. So we're going to start by exploring the tool itself, and then I will go into the different purposes that you could use that for. I'm just going to go ahead and pull up the iPad so you can see what that looks like. So as we come into the app here, you can see, and Explain Everything is available as an app for the iOS devices and also Chromebook as well. So when you first come in, you're going to come into your desktop of saved projects. And you'll notice in the top left here, there is a plus sign to begin a new project. And it's going to ask you to choose a template of colors, but also to choose whether you'd like to work in a landscape or portrait format. And once you click that, you'll notice that the iPad takes you to this blank screen. Essentially what Explain Everything is an interactive. The great thing about this interactive whiteboard is it continues to have infinite space, so you can continue moving as far to the right or as far down on this whiteboard to keep building. So you'll notice that there is a toolbar here along the left-hand side, and each of these tools do something different. If I push and hold on any of these tools, it gives me options. So the first tool we're at is the drawing tool, and you can choose size, and I can go ahead and choose which color that I'd like to draw or write with. And underneath that, you'll notice that you have a highlighter tool that you can choose a different color to highlight that makes it more transparent underneath. Also, just to note, if you push and hold on these colors, that you also get options to change those colors. We have a shape icon, and again, by pushing and holding, you'll notice you get options for shapes. And if you choose any of those, as soon as you come back out, you can change. And by using your fingers, you can actually touch and manipulate this or annotate it. Also to note here that you have a text option. By choosing that, you get the keyboard and you are able to text. Oops. And on the iPads, keep in mind that you also have the speech to text option, which opens up a lot of options for your differing ability students or even just your students who are wanting to be more efficient. You're going to notice the next option here is this plus sign. And the great thing about that is you'll notice that you get multiple options for what you'd like to import. So if you look here at the bottom, you have the option right away for new photos and new videos. So if you have students working on particular things with manipulatives, or perhaps you're setting them to find different things, maybe shapes or different things like that, they can actually document that with those features. You'll notice here you can also bring in an existing picture, and it gives you some options. And I come in here to the camera roll. If I've chosen a particular image before, I can bring that in, and then whether I want to manipulate that by cropping it or just say done and import that in. And you'll notice I can bring in things like virtual manipulatives, like tens, flats, hundreds of shapes if we were working through math. You'll also notice here that this X button, this is as if you want any of these objects, and you'll notice an X comes up, and as soon as I tap that, and again, each time I just tap, and I can delete things. You'll notice under there, there's this bullseye looking option, and when I press and hold that, you'll see I get a variety of options. These are pointers. These are great for when students are explaining their thinking or trying to annotate over something, that they can actually use these pointers and push and be able to explain and highlight. What's great about that is you're able to record while you're on these interactive whiteboards. So if you notice right down here at the bottom, it's going to have a record button, and if I hit that, I can use that pointer to explain what I'm doing, and I can go ahead and do things on the screen. And when I come back down here again and stop that, I can actually replay that. So it's actually going to record my audio, my voice. It's going to record every movement I do on that interactive whiteboard. So what's great about that is students can actually record themselves throughout the process of manipulating things on this whiteboard. And I, as the educator, can now go back and re-listen and replay specific parts of that, and perhaps be able to examine on a deeper level now student thinking, and giving them options for explaining their thinking that they perhaps maybe haven't had in the past. Just also note here underneath, there's this information button. You get a bunch of options when this comes up. So this is very much, if you're similar to working on Smart Notebook, you'll see that I can, when I touch an image, I can choose to do different things to it, like duplicate it, copy, paste. I can rotate it. I can flip them left or right, up and down. And you'll notice at the top here, I have options to place. To be able to move that arrow, I can say lock. I can arrange things to bring them to the front or back. So that's where you're going to get that option there. And you can see if I were using these as manipulatives, I could have students duplicate them to be able to create as many as they need. You also have your front and backwards button, which is great. You have your zoom button, and if you want to be in presenting mode, you can minimize some of your options there. If you take a look here at the bottom, you're going to notice that it's telling us we're on slide 1 of 1. So we can actually add as many blank slides as we want. So this becomes an interactive whiteboard that is also a slideshow that we can record and annotate and record our thinking. We can go in, when you become an advanced user, you'll notice that there's options here to record different layers of recording, which becomes really interesting and creative in the arts areas. And then you'll notice here on the right-hand side that there is an export button to be able to move that. And just to bring your attention, you have options for how you export that. You can export it as a video that will play through, a PDF, considering if you have multimedia in there, again, an image. The project is if this is something that you would like to import back in to explain everything at a later date to add to. So potentially creating things like digital portfolios, because you have the options of all of those slides. So just to come out of there, and then your home button is going to bring you back to the beginning, where I'm not going to save that, but it will take me out to my home screen here. So I'm just going to come back in here for a minute. That was a very quick overview of some of the types of buttons in there. And again, don't be afraid to Google different examples of that. There are many out there for you to examine and go through at your own pace. But I do want to take a few minutes to explore some of the options that you have for creating different things with your students. So taking a look at one of the examples you could work through with your students. This was a grade 3 example of a number sense and numeration expectation where students had been working on comparing whole numbers. And what this teacher has done is taken a worksheet and brought it into Explain Everything, redefined that experience, and it created this interactive tool which is going to record the student thinking. So I'm just going to let you see this, and then I'm going to show you how that might look like, how you would build it.
Place on this one, and 1 and 5 tens in that. And if you don't have enough tens and hundreds, you do the duplicate. Like on my calculator, you duplicate that one. You need 5. So I have 2 and I have to duplicate it again. Duplicate it again, then duplicate it again. And
So as you can see, this is just a small snippet of this experience, but the student is able to explain the process as they move through that, as they're able to build, represent, and then compare greater than or less than with these two numbers. And again, this isn't necessarily something you would do every single day with your students, but it's definitely a nice option for creating a checkpoint and documenting some of that learning from your students. But also if you are looking to try to identify with some particular students perhaps where their misunderstandings or misconceptions lie, you could have them do that. And the nice thing is having it export as a video allows you to fast forward and move through that to be able to get to see what you need to see with your students. So I just want to show you kind of what I meant when I said they could bring in that worksheet. So I'm just going to come back out here for a moment and come into a blank Explain Everything interactive page here. And whether you take a photo of a worksheet or you find one online, or it's a graphic organizer like a Venn diagram or something like that, you're going to come to the plus sign here again to add your photo. And you're going to come into your photo album and take that. I'm just going to choose it, just an image here because of it's what I have on my camera roll, but you could imagine that as a worksheet. And then come back over to the little eye here, and you're going to go ahead and tap your image and then lock it in place. And that's what they would have done with the worksheet. Then they can go ahead and build the manipulatives with the shapes or bring them in as images as well, and just leave them unlocked so that they can be duplicated and worked. I want to show you just one example of how I can add a particular type of image. And you're going to notice as I add this in that I can actually see in behind. And that's because this is a grid that has a transparent background, and it's called a PNG file. PNG. When I'm searching the internet, I can look for PNG files for manipulatives like grids or rulers or protractors and bring those in as an image. And then it allows me to kind of manipulate that and create things. You'll also notice I can bring in another PNG image that I have here, and which is a protractor. So I could have students perhaps drawing one here, creating a line, and then manipulating and using that protractor to measure that. And again, being able to record their thinking and hear them. And we start to examine again the idea of the SAMR model and how we're taking something that maybe was like a worksheet and moving it to a different level on that SAMR and kind of redefining that experience for students. Here's an example of how you might use this for reading records. Oh, sorry. Just go back one for a second. And what we had the students do was take a picture of the expectation. We then asked them to take a picture of the book. And then they were to take a photo of one of the pages in the book use the laser pointer, and record themselves reading.
Regarde un château. Impossible. Au milieu d'une clairière se trouve Das, l'île des Trix. Elle est en train d'hypnotiser un chiffon. Je me demande ce qu'il fait dans les temps.
So again, you're being able to record a reading sample and go ahead back and re-listen to that. You can listen for fluency, you can listen for self-corrections, you can analyze it and explore and plan your next steps there. There we go. So another example, this comes from grade 5, and we were looking at identifying and classifying angles. I'm just going to show you on the iPad what that looked like. So again, this was set up for the students and then airdropped to them or shared through Office 365. So they had their learning goal and their success criteria. They had been working on this for a bit, so we were using this as a moment to kind of document some of that learning. They were given the task of finding an everyday object, identifying an angle, and classifying that. And we gave them a suggestion of a tool, which was that PNG protractor. And here is a sample of what that might look like. So you might have students recording themselves, finding those angles in the room, be able to take really close observations of how they use that protractor, and perhaps identify some misconceptions you need to correct with the student. And you can kind of listen and watch that experience as the student documents their thinking and they're able to annotate and record right onto that slide. They can then go ahead and document their thinking around that. And then if they share that back to me, I as the teacher can actually go back in and leave them some feedback right in this, and then I can share it back to them. And with the ability to have that speech to text feature, it makes it really efficient for me to be able to give feedback to the students. That way I can just record my thoughts and have it translate into text. So just a nice option to consider. We were looking at the idea of how you might use this in social studies. We know there's lots of steps of that inquiry phase. So the idea of being able to use this like a portfolio or to record their thinking. And again, oops. Sorry, just to come back out here. Just to show you how you can actually add in, if you come into the web browser, and I can actually pull up a web browser and demonstrate to my students how to do some of those specific research skills. And really leave some detailed instructions for them to find perhaps safe areas for research. And I can walk them through and record that and share that. So a great way for students also to record that back to me, for me to be able to document some of that overall expectation too of your social studies inquiry phases. So just taking an overall look here for some of the different ways you can use Explain Everything. You can use it to present content directly to the students, like a lesson, whether that's pre-recorded or live. And then the students have the ability to replay that if you save it. You can give them some feedback or different types of assessment. You can use it to examine exemplars together that you can write on and annotate on. You can use this to gather student evidence and for consolidation, perhaps in your 3-part math. You can record observations of your students as they're working, maybe on hands-on. You can create guided tasks for your students and create independent learning moments by having recorded instructions and tasks can free you up to pull guided groups while other groups are following through your instructions on an iPad. You can use these to create digital portfolios specific to social studies and inquiry is great. They can journey their inquiries as they go along and document that. And because you can save and re-record in here, you can go ahead and add their learning throughout the inquiry, which is great. And again, for drafting and giving some feedback. back.
Okay, and I'm just going to join you back. So hopefully you were able to pick up a few tips to help you get started with Explain Everything. My best advice would be just to pull it out and start pushing buttons and give it a try. At the very minimal, it's a beautiful interactive whiteboard that the students can record responses on. As you're ready, feel free to search examples on the internet. There's lots out there. And again, if you're looking for some step-by-step instructions on how to save from the school iPads into Office 365, that link is in our conversation document. So you can copy and bookmark that, and it will walk you through that process. Thanks for joining us today, and have a great